Welcome to 25 years of Gran Turismo. Yes, folks, Gran Turismo came out initially December 23rd, 1997, and now with it being December 23rd, 2022, it's been 25 years. I did a video for the 20th anniversary of Gran Turismo, and I guess I'll link that in the description. Honestly, a lot of that video kind of just has been exaggerated since then. Main points that I said in that video is Gran Turismo was starting to go down a different path. Some people weren't particularly liking that path, but overall, Gran Turismo still had enough heritage and nostalgia to where it was getting pretty well received. Now, fast forward 5 years, Gran Turismo is still winning awards for like best sports and racing game and stuff. They've actually won two of them. One from PlayStation. I don't really consider that one counting at all. Of course, PlayStation gonna have the reward be in house. Supposedly it was public voting, but that doesn't mean that PlayStation couldn't just have people paid to publicly vote to sway it to Gran Turismo. But anyway, they also won from the Game Awards over like NBA 2K and stuff. So yeah, Gran Turismo is using its nostalgia and stuff to still be pretty good in the media's eyes, apparently. But realistically, yeah, less people like it than ever. And in my opinion, it's just overall worst game at the current point than it's ever been in 25 years. But I guess because this is an anniversary in which Gran Turismo themselves are putting a lot of effort in for the 20th anniversary, Gran Turismo Sports Online was down. And that's actually shown in the 20th anniversary video. I don't remember specifically what happened there, but yeah, for the 20th anniversary, you could even play online in the online-only game. That for now it still is. Yeah, anyway, 25th anniversary, Gran Turismo themselves seem to put a lot of effort in it. They had the events that have already ended. I don't know why they didn't correlate anything to be going on right when the anniversary is. If something does happen, like right after I record this video, I may do gameplay on it. I'll see how it goes. There's currently a snowstorm and preparing for Christmas and stuff. I'll see how that goes. Anyway, for what this video, my specific video will be about, it's kind of just, again, I don't really script my videos. It's gonna just kind of go on my feelings and thoughts and stuff. Probably some of the stuff I've said before. Probably some of the stuff many people have echoed before. I mean, for an anniversary, it's kind of the point, is to look at the past and try and predict the future. So a lot of it isn't particularly new, a lot of it isn't particularly accurate to everyone, but that's what you get for any type of anniversary. And, I mean, Gran Turismo is that in general. A lot of it ain't particularly accurate. A lot of it, I wouldn't even really say is all that new. I mean, there's some new individual things going on now, like Sophie is coming, that's supposed to be the best AI ever and all that, but coming is a general term. I could have sworn I read somewhere that it was supposed to be here in 2022, and that ain't happening, folks. Maybe that was just rumors and stuff. I can't even remember anymore if it's fits. All that just kind of blurs together now, because even some of the stuff that Gran Turismo did say officially, like having selling of cars and stuff since the game came out, was a lie. Gran Turismo still just straight up lied with not giving the double rewards for the 25th anniversary time trial. That they just straight up lied about that, period. And discussing, they lied. So, yeah, I don't really know what to believe anymore. But I do know this for a fact, that for the majority in which Gran Turismo has been around, it was the peak of racing games, in my opinion. Granted, there was a time before I was around that Gran Turismo was around. Again, the first Gran Turismo that I played was GT3, but I think it's pretty much undisputed that GT1 and 2 were the peak of simulation racing games, because they were the only simulation racing games, so therefore you can say that peak continued. I mean, I think it is the general consensus that GT was ahead of everything between GT1 and GT5. Some people say Forza caught up by GT5, but I don't think many people say it was straight up ahead. At GT5, there's a debate, but I would still say there was solid till 1997 to 2012 or so. I'll say that Gran Turismo was truly the peak of simulation racing. And, I mean, to an extent, I would say racing games in general. I mean, of course, there were amazing individual racing games through that time. Burnout Theory, Midnight Club 3 Double Disc and Remix, Need for Speed Underground 2, NASCAR Racing 2003 with the PC mods and stuff. There's quite a few individuals, but I'd say for a consistent putting out great game after great game, it's Gran Turismo during that span. So, I mean, when you had 15 years of being on top, and in my opinion, on top of racing games in general, that's still amazing and definitely worth pointing out. I mean, I would say even if I'm still doing a video for its 50th anniversary, I doubt it, but still, I would still mention those first 15 years as an amazing accomplishment. I guess I can kind of lead into that like I did for the 20th anniversary. I said in the 20th anniversary, would it make it another 20 years? And I said that, yeah, in some form, Gran Turismo will be around in 20 years. Will it be around in 25 years now? I kind of doubt it, folks. I mean, maybe it'll be one of those things like Burnout where things get remastered or whatever. But I would say in terms of new content, not really. I mean, Kaz himself isn't exactly a spring chicken anymore, and I mean, I would say at this point the franchise is kind of lost its feathers. I was gonna say something with, like, of what James May says involving chickens. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, if you know what I'm talking about. But I'm uploading this video on YouTube and putting it on platforms where I probably couldn't even make that joke on, so again, if you want me to do the uncensored bits, maybe I will. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess I can kind of touch into the next bit of myself is that, I mean, y'all have already noticed, I've been trying to branch out and do other things. I'm very much lucky that at least on the Library and Odyssey side of things, I'm popular enough to where as many, if not more, people want me doing the other things than just Gran Turismo, but I mean, that's what I've done for the majority of time I'm making videos. It still feels weird to do. I mean, I said straightforward, I'm moving to Assetto Corsa. That game is on sale for like $4 or something. So I might as well at least try it. I still have a bit of time to try it over the holidays and stuff. That doesn't mean I'm permanently playing that or whatever, but I mean, I have a hunch that Assetto Corsa is going to be a little bit more of a polished racing simulator than Gran Turismo 7. That's for sure, folks. That's for sure. I have a hunch that Gran Turismo 7 ain't exactly going to hold up to that much older game with less cars and worse graphics, and yeah, I'd say it's still not going to be nearly as good. But, I mean, all in all, even me playing Gran Turismo, I had 15 years of playing it. I didn't even really start to GT3. I would say for the first 15 years of me even playing Gran Turismo, even after it really peaked, even after Forza surpassed it, which again, I would say 2013-ish or so is when Forza really did surpass it. GT6 was, should have waited a few years and put it on the PS4, frankly. But they didn't, so it is what it is. But I would say even for me, I got a solid 15 years out of it. I started playing again on, say, late 2001. So late 2016, I'd even say into late 2017-ish, I actually got bad luck in late 2017 when the PS3 that I had messed up. But I'll say even 16 years. Maybe minus a month or two, because again, it's still documented somewhat. On my channel, if you're going to go way back, the PS3 messed up. So 2 months right, not too long after GT4 came out, I couldn't play. And anyway, yeah, I ran it up to 16 years that I've had truly having fun with Gran Turismo. Yes, by the end of those 16 years, I was seeing its flaws. GT6 was just a rehash of GT5. It really could have just been a $10 upgrade to GT5 that had more cars and tracks and stuff, and it wouldn't have made any difference. It didn't really need to come out of the full price game, but here we are. And going in 2016 and 17, I mean, GT Sport just straight up, it released unfinished. It didn't have even arcade mode. It barely had any cars. It was an unfinished game. It should have released as a prologue. Let's be straightforward on that. But it didn't, and it is what it is. But I mean, I still had enough fun, at least during the end through racing with people that I already have made connections and stuff too, that I still have fun. So, I mean, even when I got a solid 15 years out of the franchise of having mostly fun, again, I'd say my peak was about 10 years to mid, maybe 2004 to 2014 or so was probably my absolute peak of playing in terms of just having fun, messing around and stuff, but I'd say enough where I'd give it 15 years. That's good too. There's no faulting that. I've had so much fun for so long. And I've told many stories about that on various videos of like messing around in dirty racing rooms or starting Team Mopar to beat the team that was racing dirty in the clean rooms, or competing in extremely fun endurance league, or competing in dirty endurance racing league, competing in even GT Planet karting series. Seems like no one really ever brings that one up anymore. Stuff like that, or just dirty NASCAR at Daytona. I really do wish that GT7 got some type of license for NASCAR. It seems like a very much missed opportunity. Even though they have Daytona, whatever. And just getting good throughout the game. I've told stories about that before too. Is when I started GT5, one of the early time trials in that, I finished 250,000th in the world, or even lower than that. It was 250,000 something in the world. The most recent weekly race in, being the A version of it, I finished 5th in the world, which is higher than I've ever done in anything but the front wheel drive drifting, which take that as you may, if that counts, or whatever. Sadly, I sort of think that technically you could drift higher points in the front wheel drive car right now. Kind of don't think PD ever fixed that. I think they just kind of ignored it and made it to where there's barely any drifting at all, and what drifting is there is with one car. Yeah. Even I saw that was hacked. People were getting scores of like 47,000 points when the gold was 6,000 something. Obvious hackers are obviously hacking. But anyway. Yeah, I still have so many memories that Gran Turismo still definitely had so much of a positive impact on my life. I even said that in my life story video. If it wasn't for Gran Turismo, I wouldn't have anything positive to push for. I did as good as I possibly could in school because I needed to. My family didn't have enough money to put me through college without scholarships, so I had to. My dad forced me to push and so many other things. I said that in the life story too. So, it was just good to have something that even my family could agree on for me to try harder on and all that. Again, I told the story. That is after I saw GT Academy, my dad saw a former Bengals player on there. We always liked the Cincinnati Bengals. They were on board with me pushing to get better at Gran Turismo and stuff like that. So, in fact, Gran Turismo, my life just would have been a boring grind of nothing positive really whatsoever other than the pets that I had. And I've told stories of my pets too. I have a whole channel discussing all my pets, and mainly Kipper now, but still. There'll be plenty more videos of that too. Other than Gran Turismo, that was the bright spot of when I was a teenager pretty much. So, yeah, without Gran Turismo, me personally, I probably would have ended too well, I don't think. That kept me motivated for something positive to look forward to throughout. I knew sort of tentatively that going into college, I wasn't sure if I could do it. Lo and behold, yeah, I had to switch my major and all that, but I've told stories of that before too. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, a lot of this is kind of rehashing or stuff like that. Well, that's what you get a lot of anniversary. Gran Turismo in general, there's not much more that I can say than just what everybody's saying. So, what I can say is my own stuff. I can say in a general that peaks of each game, like GT1 was just the first one. It set the groundwork, it sold what the series was, and people really enjoyed it. GT2, it had 600 something cars, up around 650, I think it was, on the PlayStation 1, and it just absolutely slipped the fourth over it. And GT3 had the prettiest graphics of any racing game ever made at time and sold more than any other in the franchise's history. GT4 was probably the most polished and most stuff to do of any Gran Turismo in history. It still had the most cars in the franchise history at the time, and it showed kind of hints of what's to come with having an online thing that sort of kind of happened for a few thousand people that now, if you know how, you can actually play GT4 online now. Stuff like that. GT5 had stepped to the kind of modern day games. Like, if you look at, especially GT5 Prologue, and you look at GT7, there's a lot of similarities in terms of, like, photo locations and, like, the backgrounds and stuff with the photorealistic stuff with the cars in them. And, like how actually even some of the online was done in terms of how lobbies ran and stuff. A lot of those are the same venues. I would say GT5 Prologue to an extent, but definitely GT5 was the first modern Gran Turismo to set the stage of what to come. GT6, it had the most cars, from what I recall, it had the most tracks. I mean, to a lot of people, GT6 was the worst one. I don't necessarily say you're wrong about that, but I mean, it did have the most cars and most tracks. So yeah, at the time, it was probably the worst one. That's fair to say, but it had some peaks in numbers and stuff. GT Sport was arguably the most realistic at the time. It definitely looked the prettiest at the time, but of course it did. It was on the next console, and I didn't like GT Sport. I mean, I said before, it was the people that played it that made it. For me, it was the competitive aspects and just racing with y'all, and that was the fun of it, not really the game itself. But, I mean, still, you could see where PD was coming from to an extent there. They just didn't execute it too well. And, I mean, nonetheless, it was very much the nicest sport of all the FIA races back when it was still with FIA, and all that pageantry and stuff going to actual events was amazing. And then GT7 is, it looks the prettiest of any game ever made. And, okay, I do struggle to say stuff about GT7. I mean, to me, I wasn't expecting GT7 to be the worst. I expected it to be just no way it could possibly be worse than Sport. I mean, it had more cars, features, graphics. Just there you go. I said it in reviewing the more recent trailers and even of the early first week review before everybody knew about the microtransactions and before there was the day over a day when there was no online and all that it shouldn't end up worse than GT Sport. Oh boy, was I wrong about that. Definitely worse than GT Sport. I just didn't see that one coming. So, I mean, with it being the 25th anniversary, I've kind of said this before. What are my rankings of all time main Gran Turismos? Not the PSP, not the Prologue, stuff like that. Is in last is GT7. Again, I wasn't really expecting that, but it's bad, folks. It's bad. GT Sport next. They could see where PD was coming from, but still I didn't particularly like it. GT6, I mean, again, I'd say during its peak, like when it had online, it already had the track path editor added to it, and especially when the track path editor got glitched and stuff, all that was really fun. I'd say GT6 was rounded to an 8.5, like maybe not a quite 8.5 out of 10, but rounded to it like maybe 8.3 or so. The online was glitchier in GT5 for whatever reason, and just stuff didn't load nearly as well, especially for me, but somewhat for everybody. That was a major issue when that series started shifting more towards online play, and obviously there was a bunch of the standard cars and stuff back then. Again, even for that, I'd say the game was 8.5 out of 10. And Gran Turismo was before that averaged above a 9 out of 10. They should have just waited PS4, but whatever. And then next in the series, I would say GT1, which I would say is about a 9 out of 10. I mean, it's Gran Turismo 1. It was the framework for what was to come, and it was awesome for the time. 9 out of 10. I mean, there's no negatives really to it, but it was the first one, so the positives weren't quite as polished. So, after that, I kind of debated between Gran Turismo 3 and Gran Turismo 2. General consensus is that GT3 is better. I think before I've actually put GT3 better, but realistically, GT3 had just so much nostalgia around and stuff, and for the time when it came out, yes, it was definitely better and more hyped up than GT2. But as time has went on to like 2022, I think GT2 holds up better of having so many more cars and stuff. I'm gonna make a video in the future too of what if Gran Turismo 3 kept the quote unquote standard cars, meaning the PS1 looking cars from GT2, like they did sort of with Gran Turismo 5, keeping the PS2 era cars from GT4. I'm gonna make that video at some point, and that's a what if video. Obviously, no true facts about that, but anyway. So I would say GT3 is the next above there from in the grand order above GT1. And I mean, yes, it very much looked pretty at times. There wasn't tons to do and stuff. So then after that is GT2. Again, I'd say above a 9 out of 10, like 9.2, 9.3 or something out of 10, and I think that's the general consensus. Again, there's really no negatives to GT2. It just didn't really hold up in terms of graphics. I mean, even when it came out, the PS1 was an older console, so it wasn't downright perfect, but it was as good as you could do with that console. If there's ever Gran Turismo out there that got absolutely everything possible out of a console, it was Gran Turismo 2. I'll say that from what I can tell. And then next, again, this is my opinion, but it's Gran Turismo 5. Some people didn't like the standard cars, I get that. But I would rather have had them than not. And the way that I look at Gran Turismo 5, too, is if you want to take out the standard cars completely, it still had more cars than of what the previous console launched with, like Gran Turismo 3. It still had more cars than what the subsequent console launched with, being Gran Turismo Sport, if you only count the premium cars. And it had a lot of tracks and things to do, and online, in my opinion, worked better in GT5 than GT6. The self-racing was cool. GT5, the only negatives were something I'd rather have than not, and everything else was amazing about it. So, I would say, to me, GT5 was probably 9.4 or so out of 10. And then I would say the best ever is Gran Turismo 4. I've said that before, and probably always say that. I don't think a Gran Turismo ever surpassed GT4, because it had everything. It had the best looking cars possible on the console. Like I said, there's an argument that GT2 got the most out of a console than even more than GT4. But I mean, if you looked really hard at GT4 too, you could tell that some of those car models were actually worse than some of the others on there. They were less of a standard to premium, really, than you could tell with like GT5 or whatever. But still, they were somewhat different based car models on GT4 as well. All the car models didn't look the exact same quality and stuff. It just wasn't as noticeable as something like GT5 or whatever. But anyway, GT4 is close to a perfect Gran Turismo as possible. People do say that the cars in stock form drove somewhat understeery, I guess. I mean, I was a kid when I played it and did most things in stock car back then. Nowadays, I've played GT4, everything tuned the stuff to my liking, and it's fine. And this cars couldn't roll over yet. That's something that I did in GT5 onward, is you could roll over cars. I had fun with jelly cars and stuff. But given the limitations of the console and stuff, GT4 is pretty much as close to perfect as possible. Like, I would say those things are enough to knock it from a perfect 10 out of 10. But those are also somewhat nitpicks in the grand scheme of things, because you can tune your car, and the consoles didn't allow the cars to roll over. But everything else, GT4 is pretty much perfect. I mean, it had tons of cars, it had tons of stuff to do. If you want to, even nowadays, you can play it online. There's mods for it that you can do. A bunch of crazy stuff to it, like corruptions and stuff and all that, too. GT4 nowadays is a sandbox with fast enough computer and stuff is amazing, and new levels of it than it ever has been. You can even play online now, and quite a few people do. Gran Turismo 4 then was pretty much perfect. Now it's even better from the people making it better. I would say Gran Turismo 7 probably about a 9.7 out of 10. It's pretty much perfect. And Gran Turismo 4 is what really got me hooked to the series. I played GT3. It was great and all, but there wasn't really enough cars to keep me playing it for all that long. GT4, there was just enough cars and stuff to do. That's what kept me playing the franchise the most. Like GT3, I'm sure back before GT4 came out, I played stuff like Need for Speed or Midnight Club or whatever, Warren GT. When GT4 came out, I played GT4 more than the rest. I still like the rest plenty, but I played GT4 more than the other games on PS3. So, yeah, folks, that's my ranking throughout, and it's pretty much where I had it before. I think the only thing that changed is I did have GT3 down one, and I wasn't really. The last time I did ranking, GT7 wasn't out. I expected GT7 to at least be better than Sport, just straightforward. There was nothing that I thought at the time could possibly make it worse. And then I had it on the edge of better than GT6 or not. But again, GT6 being so low on the list, I'd still give it its prime when it had online, which is probably the first right ranking, especially because I think there's even mods and stuff where you can play online. Now again, with granted, it's not really as smooth and seamless as GT4 because you need pretty much top of the line computers you can possibly get to run a PS3 mod when it's not too hard to run a PS2 one. Anyway, GT6 being quite low on the list, I'd still say ran out of an 8.5 out of 10. The average Gran Turismo is above a 9 out of 10 if you kind of just go by all of them combined. Like I said, I think the Metacritic is pretty accurate for what GT7 is. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those, as they say, the best way to rate games is take the best and the worst out of the equation and rate the rest. That's kind of what it is. GT Sport, I'd say I don't like GT Sport, so I think I personally rate it a bit lower, but I think to be fair, it's about a 6 out of 10. If you actually go to user score on Metacritic, I think it's like a 6.1 or something out of 10, so if I'm in a good mood to about where it is realistic. And that's what I say in general too with the overall scoring of games. Especially with Gran Turismo, it's an exclusive for consoles, so they're going to get boosted a bit. I mean, look at the awards they're getting now. The user scores say more than the actual quote-unquote professional scores. That's for sure, folks. That's for sure. But anyway, yeah, what I'm saying is take out the best, take out the worst to make more even rating of game. Gran Turismo averages, say, even slightly above a 9 out of 10. Throughout all of its history, that's still downright amazing. Granted, it's by far at its worst point in history. It had the worst game of all time in GT6 for its series, and then the new worst game of all time for its series in GT Sport, and then the new, by far, worst game of all time in its series for GT7. And the sad part about it, too, is GT7, you can tell there's some effort put in by some people, but then other people downright ruined it on the staff of making the game, and yeah. GT7 released way earlier than it should. Like GT Sport, to an extent, depending on how you order it, like GT6. GT6 should have released a PS4 game in like 2015 or 16 or something. GT Sport, if GT6 releases a PS4 game, GT Sport probably would have had everything it released. And then GT7 just, man, I don't really know if it's really released at all. I should have started from scratch or whatever after GT Sport. There's really no set goals with 7. It takes what was in Sport, does it worse. Like it doesn't show your driver and sportsmanship rating now throughout the race. It doesn't actually have like Sport did with more of a combination of races and stuff. It seems like GT7 rehashes a lot of the same races in Sport mode or in the championships and stuff. GT Sport was way more varied, especially because back in GT Sport there's a point where it actually was truly daily races with less cars and tracks, and yet people still enjoyed the daily races. Now, in theory, with way more cars and tracks, it would be that much easier to do daily races, but no. So, again, Pete is straight up lying, calling them daily races. They haven't once been daily in the entirety of Gran Turismo 7, and they never will in GT7, so they're lying. And yeah, so I mean, if you look at the current state of Gran Turismo, it's bad. It's really bad. That's why I'm trying to diversify and stuff. Gran Turismo is dying, and I'm aware it is. I'm having to diversify or die with it, I guess. It's really about it. I don't particularly want to. Gran Turismo is by far what I'm best at, but at this point, it's looking like I'm going to have to. In my opinion, the vast majority, if not all of the content creators that want to continue making content to look to do that. People who only play Gran Turismo, I've seen what happens to people that only play NBA 2K and the ones that have already died and become corrupt. Unless you're one of the top 5 or so in the entire world, it doesn't work out. Everyone else kind of just left to rot, left to suffer, however you want to put it. It's going to happen with Gran Turismo at the state it's currently going. I really hope it doesn't, but I'd say there's a much higher chance that it does than it doesn't. So right now, I'm just trying to diversify to save the channel, pretty much. If I just continue only playing Gran Turismo, it ain't going to end up looking pretty in a few years. That's for sure, folks. As much as I want Gran Turismo in the Paralympics, and I'm still going to fight for that. If that happens, then I'll go back to playing more Gran Turismo. That's a giant if there. That's for sure, folks. That's for sure. Again, Gran Turismo 7's terrible. If the Paralympics don't want to have anything to do with Gran Turismo, I very much understand. I'm not going to fault them in the slightest. That's also for very much sure. But I mean, yeah, as bad as Gran Turismo is in its current state, the bulk of the people who play online, it seems like, prefer GT Sport Online, and even a lot of them go to GT Sport to do online leagues and stuff right now. The offline stuff, people people said time and again, it's not nearly, offline doesn't even touch candle to GT4, which was on the PS2. And in terms of the stuff upcoming, I mean, we have no idea when we're going to get Sophie. We don't even know for sure, if at all, we're going to get PSVR 2. We'd have to assume we will, but we don't know that. In fact, even the stuff in the future doesn't look all that bright because we don't know much about it yet. I mean, yeah, Gran Turismo is at its worst state it's ever been in. When the 20th anniversary, I was just kind of apprehensive and said, this could end up going badly. It's not looking its best now, that's for sure. But it was to a salvageable state back then, 5 years later. I mean, yes, technically, if another company wants to buy Gran Turismo and just fix it, then sure, it can be salvaged. But I think if it's still just Polyphony Digital and Sony controlling it, it's too little too late at this point. Granted, I'll say this, I think Gran Turismo can end up being at a better point in its future than at its current point now. But we're not getting back to the heyday of Gran Turismo at this point. Sure, it can be better than what it is now, but that ain't saying much at all. We shouldn't accept it just to get better than what it is now. At this point, there needs to be complete revamp, complete rethink. I mean, it's too far gone now. And again, I don't really want to, but in order for the greater good, I'm kind of moving on. I'm still going to be playing Gran Turismo because, again, I want to be a benchmark for getting in the Paralympics. I want to show that someone with cerebral palsy can still be fast enough to compete at a level that can kind of sort of mimic what the top very best of the best are doing. So I'm still going to continue to play Gran Turismo for that. And, I mean, if I'm already doing it for that, I'll do it for y'all as well. Make the content that goes along with that. Like I will release the videos showing the tunes or laps or whatever it may be to go along with that. But, I mean, come 2024, if Gran Turismo doesn't end up in the Paralympics, it's probably it for me in Gran Turismo, unless it gets a whole lot better a whole lot quick. That's probably about it. I said if during maybe 2018 or so, if Gran Turismo Sport, that if Gran Turismo Sport 2 was the next Gran Turismo to come out, then I was pretty much done with the franchise. I mean, maybe I'd play it if it was on sale for like $10 or something like that. But I definitely wouldn't be getting it when it came out. At this point, unless there's a giant revamp, there's a giant change, something major happens, which one of those major things would be Gran Turismo getting into Paralympics. That's just straightforward. That I'm not going to get Gran Turismo 8 till it comes on sale. Especially, too, because Gran Turismo 8 is going to be PS5 exclusive, or it takes so long to make it would be on the PS5 and PS6, but let's not think about that one. And I have a hunch the PS5 is going to still, even by that point, be too expensive to be worth it, and when I've already got this generation of Xbox. So, yeah. There's that to consider as well, so. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the video where I'm saying that not 25 years, but more like 1 3/4 years or so, I might be pretty much done with the franchise. I kind of have my foot at the door now. I'm trying to expand and stuff just for the betterment of the channel, for betterment of content, for somewhat the betterment of just my sanity. Of course, I'm still going to push as hard as I can for Gran Turismo to do good in individual things, but I don't really want to have to look at Gran Turismo nonstop and criticize every point about it anymore, because it's looking like that's pointless. For a while, I wanted to do the PD Logics and stuff to just put a fun spin on that. Yeah, there's some stuff wrong with the series and all that, but it can be fixed, and I can put it in a unique way. But now it just seems like it's droning on and getting to the point of it's no one important hears it anymore. No one important cares. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there will be a massive revamp, like I'm going to keep fighting for. Maybe Gran Turismo can get in the Paralympics, but I'll say this: I definitely have my foot out of the door at this point, and I don't even particularly want to do that. It's just I've seen NBA 2K, I've seen Madden channels. It's just the way it has to be. And for Gran Turismo in general, I mean, I would say it's best to do that even for casual people. Money's not that big of an issue, yeah, whatever, get it. But for people that you're thinking of, oh, I'm going to either spend the same amount of money on Gran Turismo or spend it on something of a completely other genre that's a much better game, even if it's somewhat of a new genre to you, if it's a much better game, do that. At this point, I'd pretty much recommend everyone to go ahead and expand their horizons and stuff. Hint, hint, maybe Forza Horizon, that one's good. I kind of end off this video by saying that, with this too, is that Forza just had their 10th anniversary for the Horizon series. People were let down of that 10th anniversary because the game currently still has like some hackers and stuff. Any game that has a PC port will have hackers. Wink wink, Gran Turismo is thinking of moving to PC. That's inevitable. I'm pretty sure it's not gone in too many things, but I'm pretty sure there's even some hackers right now, or at least since they've updated the leaderboards, in CT7 with the drifting event. It's only the drifting event, so it's not that big of a deal, but still. Any PC game will have hackers. That's no one can really deny it. And any game in general now seems to have withheld content. That's downright terrible. I wish they wouldn't do it, but they seem to all be doing it. So I can't really fault Forza for doing it more than Gran Turismo or any of the rest, which they're all doing at this point. Yes, I hate that Forza's withholding content. I hate that there's hackers on Forza Horizon. But people are saying that Forza Horizon 5 right now is in a terrible state, and barely anyone's playing it at this point. Look at Gran Turismo, folks. Forza Horizon 5 right now, I would say, is about a 9 out of 10. It's not to the absolute peak of Gran Turismo or anything. Yeah, there's some problems. Definitely take it out of rated, even to a 10 out of 10. But a lot of those problems can't realistically be fixed. Even though actually the withholding of content and just carrying over content from other games, that could easily be fixed. But when no other games are doing it, they're not either. But still, people can complain no matter the franchise. Even if the franchise is amazing, if there's a slight downgrade compared to what it was a few months ago, people are going to complain. But at this point, Forza is the winner. Forza is ahead of Gran Turismo. As much as people want to complain about it and stuff, that's just the truth. You have to move on. You have to expand your horizons. Gran Turismo, I kind of hope, does that. At the very least, if Gran Turismo isn't going to improve the main number games, I mean, Kaz has said himself he's thought about moving on and doing other stuff. Do that. Make an open world game. Make a tourist trophy game. I don't think he would do Motor 2 Grand Prix again, no matter how good it is. I don't think it'd sell too much. But something along of an open world racing game or tourist trophy game, I'm sure for its genre would do great. Granted, the motorcycle game just by default wouldn't do as good as a Gran Turismo because it's more of a niche, but still, I'd play it. If that happens, then yes, I would continue with the quote-unquote Gran Turismo franchise. I continue with whatever from Polyphony Digital that they call it. But I mean, at this point, when Gran Turismo 8 comes out, unless something major happens, which again, it might be the Paralympics, then I'm probably not going to get it on release. Supposedly, right now is the peak it's ever been for GT7 specifically. People still prefer to play online in GT Sport. The offline was better in GT4. And for even people trying to play competitively, sport mode still doesn't work properly. I even released a video saying that, oh, the penalty system worked right there. It's so rare the penalty system works as it should that every instance that I see happen of it is actually worth putting a video out for. So far, it's been 2 instances in the last 3 months. Overall, Gran Turismo is worth more VE than I could do. But right now, it's the complete and utter opposite, and in the future, I won't be part of the future more likely than not. For now, I guess just take that as you may.